down there, pretty much just threw everybody in the van, and we like buckled as we drove. Welcome back. In this next section of our little adventure is us leaving with our camper van, heading north to the north of France. So the plan for the camper van, the skeleton of a plan, is to hit Nantes and Mont Saint-Michel before getting to Paris by the 10th. Originally, our plan was to stop at the Mérignac National Park, but because it was so off the beaten path, and because for whatever reason, I can't remember what the reason was, I couldn't get one online ahead of time. And it was like you had to just show up and see if there was any there. And with it being so far off the beaten path, I didn't want to risk it. It just would have made the adventure a little too adventurous. So that's what led us to look for other plans to still fit our timeline to get to Mont Saint-Michel around the 9th and 10th. That's how we found the amazing lighthouse, the Cordouan Lighthouse. Old, beautiful lighthouse. So to get to the lighthouse, it's actually only certain times of the day because it's all based on tide. And we wanted to get the beginning of the day because it was such a long trip and so hot. Also, based on blogs and websites I read, it was more likely that if you went in the morning, it would actually happen versus in the evening. Because I guess they could cancel it if based on the water. So right now, we have just left Biarritz, checked out super early in the morning in hopes to catch a boat to a very old, very cool lighthouse. The Cordouan Lighthouse? I still can't say it correctly. I'm not even sure, but I'll put it in the bottom. It's this gorgeous lighthouse. You have to take a boat to get to it. And on top of that, it's all dependent on the tide because you have to get out of the boat, wade through the water to get to the walkway that takes you to the lighthouse. And then it's this whole historical tour. You eat lunch there and you come back. It's a whole thing. It's also very expensive, especially for a group our size. It was going to cost around $300. Sometimes you can't put a price on certain experiences where you're just like, it was worth it. This probably would have been worth it if my kids were just as excited as I was, but they really weren't. On top of that, some of my kids do get a little seasick. I didn't have anything to prevent that with me. And it was kind of based on the blogs and the websites that I'd been researching, it didn't seem like it was a guaranteed good time. And while I'm all about adventure, this was expensive. I wasn't even sure if my youngest could go. I didn't even know what that would all entail. So this was a big risk adventure. We woke up early, we snuck over and got some footage of these beautiful rock formations. It's kind of near the more downtown part of Biarritz, and we didn't explore anything else in that area. We just stayed at the beach, so that might be something we do again. But we got to the port, we parked our van, we loaded up our bags with snacks, bottles of water, and anything we thought we might need, including changes of clothes, because they say that you might get wet. Put it all in our bags and backpacks, grabbed my camera, started walking toward where we thought we would load the boat. As we're walking over, there is a line of cars, and I just assume it's for something else. As we're getting closer, there is a sign, and I was trying to use that sign to figure out where we're supposed to be. And it didn't quite make sense. And I thought it was just I thought it was just me and my lack of French skills. So I used Google Translate to take a picture, all the things. Still, I was like, I think we're not in the right place. Turns out we weren't. Actually, it was a different port about 20 minutes away. So we would not have made it in time. Or we would have barely made it in time, but like we didn't have any tickets yet. So I was like, what do we do? That's when I noticed that on the sign it also said that this was where you took your ferry boat with your car across to the other city of Royan. And there's another port that you can use to get to the lighthouse. So we got back in the van. We got in line and we got onto a ferry boat. I've never driven onto a ferry boat before. And it was a little scary because this wasn't my car and it was a big van. Everything was fine. And we ended up parking down at the bottom and right behind this big semi. And the way that we parked in there, I thought for sure we would be one of the last peoples off. After we park, you get the things that you want because everybody has to come out of the vehicle. And you go sit upstairs. There's outdoor seating or indoor seating. Indoor also has restrooms and I think like a mini restaurant in there. The kids wanted to sit outside, so that's what we did, which was great because you could see all the views. You could almost see the giant lighthouse because it is so massive. It was hard to capture, but you could also see this red lighthouse, which was just adorable. And while I was taking in everything and filming everything because it was just so amazing and I was so excited about it that I was distracted. I was engulfed in this experience. Well, like obviously I saw that we were coming close to the port, but for whatever reason, it caught my attention that where the boat was lining up was in line for the semi-truck to go out first, which meant that I also was pretty much first. And at this point, I had been very calm, lackadaisical of like, we'll get there when we get there, because I thought we were last. So I didn't rush the kids. Now it was time to rush because we were at the back of this big old group and we were the first ones to get off. So I rushed down there, pretty much just threw everybody in the van, and we like buckled as we drove off the ferry boat. Even though the end was a little bit tense, it was fine and it was so fun and so cool. Once we got there, I was now looking for the port I needed to park at to buy tickets to get to the giant lighthouse. When you get off the ferry boat, there are specific roads they want you to take, and some of them are one way, so I felt like we were going pretty much in loops. We finally got to what I thought was the parking lot for the next boat. When she was telling me the prices, though, it didn't add up, and I was concerned. And so I started asking her about lighthouses. And by the end of our conversation, she told me that actually they now needed people to go to this tourist office or go to the marina where there's tourist, like excursion places. First, we tried the main office. When we got there, though, it was locked. Nobody was there. We think that maybe either they had left sooner than we thought, or they weren't open because nobody had made a reservation. Our next option was to go find the excursion offices along the marina next to the shopping center. So we found a new parking spot and walked along the shopping. It was kind of fun because these were more boutique type shops and more local shops. And they also were participating in Solds. And they had the cutest winter gear. And I wish my kids were young enough to fit in these jackets. I love the European winter weather gear and rain weather gear. We just don't use those as much here in the States, especially not where I live. So while they were adorable, I also didn't need them. But I loved them. They were adorable. I did buy a striped shirt that looks a lot like this one. It doesn't have the cute hearts on it, but it's the typical blue and white striped shirt. You see them everywhere on everybody. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's either a very touristy thing to do, like a beret in Paris, or people really do wear these a lot because it's like the thing. So I got one because it was fun and it was cute. While we were shopping, we also found a carousel. And of course, we went on a few rides. Of course, it was gorgeous and unique. When we finally got to the excursion offices, they're like little huts, and not all of them are open. When we got there, though, the excursion hut that we needed wasn't open, but the one next to it was. But they gave private excursions and rented out private boats. And we asked if we could do that and just take it out ourselves and go see the lighthouse ourselves, what I thought would be lovely. Like, we're on our own schedule. We're not stuck to the 8-hour thing. Maybe it would still take 8 hours. I don't know. But because I didn't have the right permit, I couldn't do it. And they weren't sure about the ages of the kids. So we had to decide if we were going to do the group one at 10 a.m. the next day, or pay like a pseudo private tour for kind of a lot. It was a little, I don't know why it was so hard to decide, because like now it's like obviously not the super expensive private one. So what we did is we ended up going and getting some crepes and some ice cream and thinking about it. Then we started to look for campsites because we decided that we were going to stay one night and try to catch the morning one. And if we felt off about it, we just wouldn't do it. We did not have a campsite ready for this place. This was not the plan. We were planning on so we had extra days left over because we decided not to go to that Mérignac National Park. So instead, we decided we would just spend the night somewhere in Royan and try again in the morning. This was probably one of the most stressful, tricky things. We went around to so many different options, and we even found one that was perfect. But by the time we got to that one, the management office was closed, and so they couldn't book us a night to stay there for a night. So then we just found an Air that we just parked and slept, which is actually fine because we were just there for a night. It just wasn't ideal. These are like the weird hiccups of going with the flow. I'm still learning how to do that. It worked out. And in the morning we woke up, and the only problem is there was no restrooms. Yes, the camper van had a compost toilet, but I was not going to use that thing if I didn't have to. So the other day when we had parked to go walk around and talk to the excursion offices and shop, we found a perfect parking spot that did have restrooms. But this morning, when we tried to use the restrooms, they blocked us off because I guess a group doing some kind of excursion was changing in there, and they wouldn't let us use the restrooms at all. And it was so weird and so rude. It was just weird. I was so annoyed. Probably because I had to pee so bad. So because we wake up so early, and we needed a bathroom, and we were waiting on the excursion office to open. With all of this kind of working against us, on top of the gamble of this whole trip to this lighthouse being enjoyable, and on top of when we got back from the lighthouse, where were we going to go from there? Because the time frame that we had, we were not going to make it to Nantes before anything closed. We were not going to risk doing what we did the night before, because I remember it being very stressful that time. So I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to. So all those factors turned into, you know what? We're just going to call it. We're just going to go. We're not going to see the lighthouse, which felt heartbreaking because I'm like, we're right here. We're right here. We're so close to this opportunity where it's not super easy to get to this lighthouse. It's not right next to a super major city. It's out off the beaten path, more or less. So I felt like it was just so hard as a traveler to just let that go. But we did. And we decided to use the day to travel all the way to Nantes. Unfortunately, we still were a day earlier than our scheduled camping days at the Nantes camping. We tried to ask them for an extra day, but they just were full. So we ended up staying in an Air again, but this was a bigger city, and luckily had a very, very nice Air with a playground, a cafe, a souvenir and bookshop. It was very different and fine. In the next video, I'm going to explain our adventures in Nantes, starting from this Air, because that's where it all begins. Nantes was such a surprise to me and is now one of my favorite places. I love it a lot. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect anything, to be honest. I was just excited. I just loved everything about it. And the people were so nice. I feel like that makes a difference on your experience, if the people are nice or not. But with or without nice people, because we were mostly just by ourselves, Nantes was amazing and so family friendly. So we will talk about that next week. And thanks for following along as we worked through our way from Biarritz to Nantes. It was not glamorous. It's not like, oh yeah, come to this destination. It is the honest truth about traveling with kids, especially by yourself, especially with doing something you've never done before. It's messy, but it works out. It can work out. And it kind of goes to show how much flexibility needs to be built in for these long-term trips to work. And it definitely goes to show that you need to have your priorities set, because when it comes down to it, when you're being pulled in one direction, like the lighthouse, but it's very clear the overall experience and memories is not going to line up with that great experience in your head, you got to move on. It gets hard to choose. So, thanks for following along. We're excited about next week's video. I'll see you later. Keep traveling.